This happened back in 2003 when we were backpacking through Mexico. No smartphones, no easy cameras, just old Nokias that barely worked outside the city. There were 4 of us, me, my buddy Mark, and 2 girls we'd met along the way, Anna and Sophie. Mark was the joker, the one who always wanted to push things further. Anna was curious, maybe too curious. Sophie, she was quieter, more cautious, but she came along anyway. That night, we decided to stay inside an abandoned hotel just outside Veracruz. The locals had warned us about it. No vayan allí de noche. Don't go there at night. But we didn't listen. We were young, stupid, chasing stories. When we first stepped inside, we froze. The hotel was massive. Unreal, to be honest. The entrance opened into a wide marble lobby, the ceiling high above us and lost in darkness. A huge chandelier hung crooked, swaying slightly as if someone had just brushed past it. The walls were lined with old murals, faded and cracked, half covered in graffiti. The hallways stretched endlessly in every direction, lined with shattered doors, carpets eaten away by mold, and shadows that seemed to swallow the light from our flashlights. Every step we took echoed, like the building was hollow all the way through. And then we found the ballroom. It was cavernous, massive, silent, and pitch black at the far edges. The ceiling felt too high, like it belonged to a cathedral, not a hotel. Rows of broken tables and chairs were scattered everywhere, pushed into corners like people had left in a hurry decades ago. We set up our sleeping bags on the least broken patch of floor. For the first 10 minutes, it was nothing but us joking around. Mark kept daring Sophie to walk the hallways alone. Anna was teasing me about being the most nervous. Sophie was already uncomfortable, asking why we couldn't just camp outside. It must have been close to midnight by then. We were tired, but still buzzing with energy, daring each other and laughing like idiots. That's when Anna grinned, reached into her bag, and pulled out a Ouija board she'd bought from a street vendor earlier that day. She dropped it on the floor between us and said,
"If we're gonna do this, let's really do it."
I'd only ever heard stories about Ouija boards. I'd never actually seen one in person until that night. The board looked older than it should have, its letters faded, the planchette a little warped from heat or age. Anna set it between us and told us we had to do it properly. She made us each place 2 fingers on the planchette. Then she pushed it in 3 slow circles around the board.
All right, let's see if we can wake something up.
She asked the first question, her voice mocking.
Is there anybody here with us?
Nothing. The planchette didn't budge. Mark giggled under his breath, already losing interest. Anna leaned forward, smirking, and asked again,
If anyone is here, where are you?
This time, the planchette jerked instantly to the letter L. Sophie pulled her hand back like she'd been burned.
Nope, that was one of you.
She snapped. But the planchette kept moving, steady and deliberate. O, B, B, Y. Lobby. We all froze. Then Mark burst out laughing.
Oh, that's original. Ghost wants us to check in downstairs.
Still laughing, we grabbed our flashlights and headed for the lobby, teasing each other the whole way down the cracked, echoing hallway. We joked the whole way down, our footsteps echoing off the marble walls. Mark kept making ghost noises. Sophie kept telling us to shut up, and I was trying to laugh along, but the truth is my stomach was already tight. The lobby was enormous. Even in the beam of our flashlights, the ceiling disappeared into darkness. The chandelier swayed slightly, though none of us had touched it, the chains creaking softly like an old swing set.
Well, here we are.
Mark said, raising his arms.
Lobby. Ghost check-in counters closed for the night.
He banged on the dusty reception desk, sending up a cloud of powder that made us cough. Anna laughed so hard she doubled over, saying it was the lamest haunting ever. But the longer we stood there, the less funny it became. The air felt heavy, like the whole building was holding its breath. Even Mark eventually went quiet, his grin flickering out for the first time. After a few minutes of pretending to look around, we shrugged it off and headed back upstairs. We were still laughing, but it was thinner now. Nervous laughter, the kind you do when you don't want to admit you're unsettled. We sat back down around the board in the ballroom, and that's when Anna insisted we try again. We sat back down in the ballroom, the board between us again. The four of us placed our fingers back on the planchette. Anna made us start properly, circling it 3 times, then asked,
Is anyone here?
This time, it moved immediately. Not smoothly, but with sharp jerks, like someone dragging it too fast. It spelled out random letters. NZK. Nonsense. Mark laughed.
Okay, someone's definitely screwing around now.
He looked right at me. I swore I wasn't moving it. Sophie shook her head and refused to put her fingers back down, whispering,
This isn't funny anymore.
The planchette stopped dead in the middle of the board. None of us were pushing. Then, just as the silence dragged, it slid slowly to the word yes.
Yes, what?
Mark asked, forcing a laugh. It spelled again, LOBBY, over and over, 5 times in a row. Mark chuckled nervously, trying to keep it light.
All right, Lobby Ghost, we get it. Enough already.
But the planchette started moving faster, circling the board in uneven loops, scraping against the wood like it was impatient. Sophie pulled her knees up to her chest, rocking slightly. I could feel her shaking beside me. Then Anna's head just dropped. No warning. Chin to chest, her hair falling forward, her hands still resting lightly on the board. At first, we thought she was just screwing with us. Mark nudged me, whispering,
Oh, she's trying too hard.
But then Anna's lips started to move. At first, it was a low mumble, like someone talking in their sleep. Then it grew louder, faster, spilling out in rapid bursts of a language none of us recognized. The words were harsh, clipped like static through broken speakers. Mark laughed nervously, trying to keep it together.
Okay, enough, Anna. You're freaking Sophie out.
But Anna didn't stop. Her head hung limp, hair hiding her face, and the sounds just kept pouring out, faster and faster. Sophie reached forward and tapped her shoulder, whispering,
Anna.
Nothing. She tapped again,
Anna.
harder. Still nothing. Her breathing turned shallow. Her lips moved too quickly to even form words anymore, like her mouth couldn't keep up with the voice inside her. That's when Sophie broke. She covered her mouth and started sobbing, tears rolling down her cheeks. Mark's smile vanished completely. I could feel my own pulse in my throat. I leaned forward and touched Anna's arm. Her skin was ice cold. Then, without a word, she shot backward. Not standing, not walking, crawling. Her movements jerky and animal-like, her palms slapping against the tiles as she scuttled into the dark edges of the ballroom, just beyond the reach of our flashlights. Our laughter was gone. What replaced it was fear, the kind that freezes you to the spot, that makes your chest tighten until you can't breathe. The second Anna vanished into the dark, we all jumped to our feet at once. Panic hit instantly. None of us spoke. We just scrambled to the nearest wall, backs pressed flat against the cracked plaster like it could protect us. Sophie was sobbing openly now, her cries echoing too loud in that massive ballroom. Mark had his flashlight out, his hand shaking so bad the beam jittered across the floor. I gripped mine tight, sweeping it slowly from corner to corner, trying to catch even a glimpse of her. But the room was too big, the shadows were endless. Then came the footsteps, fast, scattered, running across the ballroom tiles. They came from the left, then behind us, then above, like she was crawling along the broken balconies overhead. Every few seconds, words would burst out, echoing nonsense in that same guttural alien language. Sometimes it sounded far away. Sometimes it felt like it was whispered just over our shoulders. We shuffled sideways along the wall, inching toward the exit. My arm brushed against Sophie. She was trembling so hard, I could feel it through her clothes. Mark's beam caught a glimpse of something in the far corner. A pale hand pressed flat against the floor, then gone before we could even process it. Sophie whimpered, and then, as if the building itself was toying with us, Mark's flashlight flickered, once, twice, and died. The darkness swallowed half the room in an instant. We were down to my single dim torch, its yellow light too weak to cover even half the ballroom. I remember thinking, if this one goes out, we're done. Sophie clung to me, sobbing uncontrollably, while Mark just stood frozen, wide-eyed. I wanted to run, but every nerve in my body screamed that if we turned our backs, she would be there. For a few seconds, none of us moved. We just pressed against the wall, staring into the dark, listening to the footsteps circling us faster and faster. Then something snapped inside me. "We have to go," I whispered. I grabbed Sophie by the arm and shoved Mark toward the doorway. The three of us broke into a sprint, our footsteps crashing against the cracked tiles. Mark's flashlight was out front, its weak yellow beam jerking wildly. And then it flickered, once, twice.
Come on, not now.
He muttered, smacking the casing. But this time, it didn't come back. The beam sputtered out completely, leaving us in near total darkness. For a heartbeat, I thought we were finished, but somehow, my torch was still alive. Its dim light cut a narrow tunnel through the dark, just enough to see ahead. And that's when the beam landed on her, Anna. She was standing in the middle of the hallway, perfectly still, arms at her sides, face blank. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. Without realizing it, I held the light on her for a good 5 seconds, long enough to take in every detail. Her eyes weren't eyes anymore. They were solid black, glossy and endless, swallowing the light without reflection. Her skin looked pale and stretched, almost waxy, like she was wearing herself as a mask. She didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared straight through me, her body as rigid as stone. It was the most unnatural thing I've ever seen. Sophie whimpered beside me, her grip digging into my arm like claws. Mark whispered,
"Oh my God."
His voice breaking. I felt my chest tighten until it hurt. Then, without a word, I lowered the beam slightly and we began backing away. Slow, careful, not daring to turn our backs. The second we had enough distance, instinct took over. We turned and ran. My torch beam shook violently in my hand as we bolted down the hall, bouncing off the walls, lighting nothing but broken plaster and shadows, until finally, we saw it, a faded exit sign ahead of us. We slammed through the rusted door beneath the exit sign and stumbled into the emergency staircase. The air inside was stale and thick, every breath coated with dust. The walls were close, pressing in tight. The concrete steps cracked under our weight. My flashlight, the only one left, shook in my hand, its dim yellow beam cutting a weak tunnel through the spiraling stairwell. Shadows stretched unnaturally long across the walls, twisting like they were reaching for us. None of us spoke. The only sounds were Sophie's sobs, Mark's panicked breathing, and the slam of our shoes against the concrete. Halfway down, a sharp screech ripped through the stairwell. It was metal against metal, like something dragging its nails along the railing above us. The sound followed us down, scraping closer, sharper, echoing in the tight space, until it felt like it was inside my skull. "Keep moving," I shouted, though my voice cracked and I didn't dare look back. That's when I heard it. Breathing. Not ours. Heavy, ragged breathing that matched our pace. Step for step, like something was running just behind us. Every time we gasped, it gasped. Every stumble, every desperate sprint down the steps, it mirrored us. The realization hit all of us at once. Nobody wanted to be last. The thought of her following, those black eyes locked on our backs, drove us faster. We shoved past each other, half falling down the steps, desperate to stay in the middle, to not be the one at the end. Mark tripped, crashing into the railing with a grunt, and Sophie screamed, yanking me back like she thought we'd lose him. For a heartbeat, the three of us collided in the stairwell, a tangle of arms and panic, before we shoved ourselves forward again, running harder, the breathing still behind us, closer now, louder, almost on our necks. The air grew colder the deeper we went, until I could see my own breath fogging in the torchlight. Every nerve in my body screamed we weren't going to make it out. And then, at last, the stairwell opened up. We spilled out into the lobby, coughing, shaking, but alive, at least for the moment. The three of us stumbled out of the stairwell into the lobby, gasping for air. My flashlight beam shook across the massive room, landing on broken tiles, on the crooked chandelier swaying violently above us, on shadows that seemed to stretch too far. For a moment, it was silent. too silent. Sophie's sobs echoed sharp and thin, bouncing off the marble walls. Then, a sound from above. The chandelier groaned, its chains straining. Dust rained down from the ceiling. I tilted the torch upward, and my stomach dropped. She was there. Anna, standing perfectly still on the mezzanine above the lobby, her figure framed in the shadows. Even from that distance, her black eyes caught the light, reflecting nothing. Her head didn't tilt, her body didn't move. She just stared down at us, frozen like a statue. We all froze with her. Nobody breathed, nobody spoke. Then the chains above us gave another violent creak, as if the chandelier was about to break loose. That snapped us out of it. "Go!" I screamed. We sprinted across the lobby, shoes pounding the cracked marble, hearts slamming in our chests. My light swung wildly, bouncing off walls and empty doorways, the shadows chasing us like claws. We vaulted through the broken lobby window, glass crunching under our boots, and exploded into the night air. We didn't stop running until the hotel was a dark silhouette behind us, its broken windows glowing faint with the last flicker of my dying torch. We didn't stay outside the hotel. None of us could. Our nerves were shattered, and every shadow felt like she was still there, waiting. So we stumbled down the road until we reached a small nearby village. We were all shaking uncontrollably, pale, unable to get our words out. An older woman stepped out of her doorway and motioned us inside. Sophie, still trembling, managed to translate between sobs. The woman didn't ask questions. She just lit incense, waved it around us, and muttered prayers under her breath as though she already knew. Then she picked up the phone and called the authorities herself. By morning, a small group of them went into the hotel. We waited in the village, sitting in silence, clutching mugs of tea we were too shaken to drink. Every sound made us jump. Every glance between us said the same thing. We'd abandoned Anna. Not long after, they brought her out. She was wrapped in a blanket, unresponsive, her body limp. They said they'd found her wedged inside an old ventilation duct on the second floor, curled up like she had tried to hide from something. But what haunts me most wasn't where they found her. It was her face. She looked older. The skin around her eyes sagged, her hair was streaked with gray, and when she blinked, her pupils looked cloudy, as if she'd aged years in a single night. None of us could speak. The authorities carried her away, and that was the last time I saw Anna. It's been 20 years since that night. Mark refuses to talk about it. Sophie still wakes up screaming. She told me once she can't shake the sound of that heavy breathing following us down the stairwell. And me, I'll never forget standing in that hallway, my flashlight locked on Anna's face, those black, bottomless eyes staring straight through me. Sometimes, when I wake up at 3 a.m., I swear I hear it again, that ragged breathing just outside my door. If you made it this far, thanks for listening. Please subscribe to Quiet Data. It helps the channel out a lot.